How can AI transform municipal governments? From attracting investments to improving legislative processes, you'll learn how municipalities can take advantage of AI to improve its operations and serve citizens. We also discuss potential risks, including job displacement, privacy concerns, and potential bias. Let's accelerate your business. Welcome to the AI Accelerator for Business show, where you get the latest strategies, tactics, and information about the business benefits of artificial intelligence. My name is Carl Ye, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jeff Bradshaw. And today we're going to be talking about AI in municipal governments and its impact to both the organization and to the residents that the municipality is serving.
This is an important topic for municipalities. I mean, they generally operate under very tight budgets and high expectations. They're under the microscope from citizens, and AI offers tools where they can do more with less. They can improve citizen satisfaction and even have it as an attraction for economic development. But the key is that it has to be implemented properly.
Yeah, so, we've been working with municipalities on this. And one thing that's obviously very different than business is their focus is a little bit different in terms of not necessarily revenue, pipeline, customer experience in a different way. But they're more focused on, hey, how do we best serve the residents of the municipality or the community, right? Now, there are a lot of overlaps. Every single organization we've talked to has, we like to call it the eye roll tasks, where people just eye roll about the most boring, mundane tasks they do. Everybody has to do reporting. Everybody has to do something that makes them their eye roll. And we've always talked about how AI can do all those eye roll tasks between the 10 to 40% and allow people, employees, to do the things that they'd rather be doing than the eye roll tasks, right? But having worked for both municipal and federal government, I nearly guarantee you there is a lot of repetitive tasks that municipal employees do, and a lot of them are eye roll tasks. And I know AI could definitely fix that. And with the municipalities we've talked to, work with, we've seen, we've met with departments that are like, wow, I can't believe you still do that manually, especially the Excel, a lot of the things on Excel spreadsheets.
Well, and I think the key thing here as well is that the technology is moving at such a rapid pace. What you don't want to have happen is have your municipality be years behind the access that citizens have to information. So your citizens are getting more educated, they're getting more tools, they're getting the ChatGPTs, the Geminis, the Claudes, they're getting a lot of these tools and they're getting a bit more sophisticated with it. If your municipality isn't going to meet them at the same mark, you run the risk of kind of being left behind. And I think that you're right, there's so many repetitive tasks. And again, a lot of municipal governments are restrictions. They have tight budgets and they're expected to do a lot. So if AI can help improve those efficiencies, they're going to have, a lot less grief from citizens if they're providing better services with maybe lower budgets.
Well, you raise a good point in terms of resident or citizen expectations, right? Because one thing that I think most people are expecting, or in the next couple of years, is that, oh, how come you're taking so long? Can't the AI do that faster, right? So the expectation is, oh, how come something simple? How come it takes you too long to post these minutes? How come it's taking too long to review my permit application? Because can't AI do that faster? So why are you doing this manually, or why are you doing this in this manner? But on the other side, it's interesting too, because unlike businesses, municipalities have those restrictions to protect both the organization and the residents in a way that adds to those layers. So for example, I think most of us know FOIP, right? FOIP rules, there's data residency rules where data has to remain in the country rather than going out of country, coming back in. So you can't use just any third-party AI tools that could have data warehouses in another country. And even though that data goes there really quickly and comes back, it still leaves the country. So there's rules like that. And then even IT, right? Not to disparage our friends in municipal IT, but they are even under more restrictions than our IT friends in the private sector, where we think they're already restrictive enough, it gets even more restrictive for IT. And I feel sorry for them because of how fast AI is moving, which leads to their employees want to deploy and use AI tools, but they can't. And how to protect the organization when you have all these residents using AI tools, like in another episode, operator or AI agents. How can you defend against any type of malicious activity or make it enabled that people can use their agents on your website?
Absolutely. And I think if we even go back and just start to think about some of the applications for municipalities and AI, I mean, you think about starting right from council. I mean, we talk about the fact how many council members get stacks of documents and they get them right before meetings and they're expected to learn about a certain topic or a subject and make an informed decision on behalf of the citizens. They just don't literally have enough time to review all those documents. And I would say most council members don't get through all of them. So can you utilize AI to summarize large documents? Can you use it to write bylaws or update bylaws? Can you use it to do predictive maintenance on equipment from transportation? Can you set something up so citizens can, rather than just finding out what their assessment is, maybe they could ask questions about assessments or their taxes or certain projects that, you know, they might be getting all kinds of questions either through email or through phone calls. Can you kind of minimize some of those questions with some AI tools to, again, provide a better service to citizens?
You know, when I was working for the federal government, I was working for a couple federal ministers, and, you know, we went around doing a bunch of announcements, and each of these ministers always get a pretty significant briefing package about a specific project, right? Most of the time when they're traveling around, they're announcing funding dollars, money amounts. And it's really funny how, like, you know, you have a speechwriter who writes your speech, you have briefing notes, you have information points, and it's just, unless you have, you know, your pet projects that you're, you know, constantly up to date with, there's no way that any of these just normal people would have the capacity to understand inside and out these projects, yet they're announcing millions, sometimes billions of dollars in them, right? And there are some people you hear about who, you know, take the time to actually read through it. But imagine if you had an AI assistant be like, hey, could you give me an understanding about, you know, this project, summarize it. Okay, can you, here's my top 3 questions. Here's 3 questions that media may ask about this question. Can you give me 5 potential red flags or things that I may not have seen? How more informed and how well versed would our representatives be, even when we're talking about municipal government? There's so many committee meetings about so many different projects. To me, I think municipal government has the most impact on people than state, provincial, or even federal, right? They impact your roads, they impact your snow removal, they impact your garbage collection. So I would love my council member to be as informed as possible, but I also know it's impossible as a normal human being to have that information. But to have AI be that for you, I still think there's huge opportunities, but I also fear that you're right. AI may not, maybe usually what happens is technology comes to private sector first and then trickles to government. And I'm just hoping government the trickle doesn't take too long.
No, and I think the thing about it is that, again, you think about like municipal governments are similar to private sector in the fact that they have HR departments. So when you're trying to hire people and you're trying to stay competitive with your packages, whether you have questions about your HR policies, your vacation policies, HSE side of things, you know, when you're talking about health, safety, environment, there's all kinds of tools that AI can help improve that. Building permits. We always hear complaints about people talking about how long it takes to get building permits. Well, part of that is because they just don't have the resources available to speed the process up. I don't believe there's any person working for a municipal government going, hey, let's figure out a way to slow this process down and create piles of work for ourselves. You know, if we can give them those tools to be able to streamline those things, and even inspections. You know, you think about the number of inspectors, and they got to do it to make sure things are done properly. But if there's AI tools that can help streamline those processes, I think, again, it's not about municipalities spending more money. It's about spending their money wiser and using the technology available to them to improve the efficiency of their overall operations.
I think one of the most frustrating thing for residents is connecting with municipal government, like either representatives or department or something, right? But coming from a municipal government side too, I can understand why it's also frustrating because you're answering 85% of your questions, probably the same questions over and over. Not, but each resident deserves to know. So something like a digital assistant in literally any department can probably free up people's time from answering the same question over and over, whether it's, simple chatbots on the website or voice, complete voice. So people can just, talk while they're doing whatever. They're like, say, for example, they're at a rec center and it's like, hey, is there room today for my kid to take part in this event? Or what time is this event? And the assistant can answer those instead of taking up a resource for the resource strapped municipality, and they can actually answer more complex questions that an AI can't do.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing too that we've seen is too often I think municipalities get caught up on the great big massive problems they're faced with, and they want AI to come in and solve it. We want a system that's going to improve the efficiency of our snow removal so that we can have trucks go here and there as this route versus this route. And I think that stuff's coming, and there are companies out there developing that technology. But I think the low-hanging fruit and the quick wins are with simple things like remove the repetitive data of transferring information from this Excel sheet to this form, or answering those 100 questions that come in on a daily basis to minimize that so you have fewer phone calls. We always talk about those boring, dull, mundane tasks that AI can really save time and money on. That's the one. Everybody wants the big problem, and we're going focus on some of the small things. That's where you're going to get your quick wins.
Things like creating agendas, meeting minutes, briefing documents, all those things that even just a regular chat GPT or even a custom GPT can do for you. To me, when I listen to some of this stuff, it's like, even though some people are using AI, I think it's like, hey, can you create a custom GPT just for agendas? Load in some examples of really good agendas from previous minutes. When council is deliberating on, let's say, a budget, you've recorded the entire transcript, right? And then all you do is create an automation transcript to agenda. And the only thing that the person has to do is review the agenda. I know for a fact a lot of municipalities are still handwriting those agendas, right? This is what this person, even though they have the transcript, someone's still there taking the transcript, turning it into, let's say, sorry, not an agenda, meeting minutes. If you can just load in the audio file and turn it into to meeting minutes, someone whose job it is, I don't know, part of their job takes 4 hours, 5 hours in one day, you've just eliminated that in less than 5 minutes less than a minute, and then added maybe 5 or 6 minutes to review. What other things can you put that person on rather than wasting their time creating minutes?
And again, I think it's just, we find it, and when we get in and meet with these different departments, it's just opportunity after opportunity. But again, you have to have a bit of a forward-thinking leadership to be able to get on board with this as well. And that's one of the things we find, and this is in both, government and private sector, is that if you can't get your leadership team to buy into it, this isn't something you can just hand off to your IT department and say, handle it, because that's generally what leadership does. Absolutely, IT needs to be involved in a key part of it, but your leadership needs to understand where the potential is here to be able to, effectively implement it into your operations.
The organizational leaderships, your, I think, directors or general managers or whoever's, running the various departments, I think this is the force of council too. Because if you can, unlike a business where, the president, CEO, C-suite says, hey, we got to do AI and, the orders are coming down. I think with council, a council approval with funding approved goes a long way versus, let's say, a municipality that doesn't have council approval. Sure, they have kind of support, but you kind of need that political force of will too, especially in a government setting.
Well, so let's take a look at the recent example, and love him or hate him, Donald Trump came down with $500 billion investment into AI in the next few years for the U.S. government. So they're making a big commitment to it. It just goes to show that they're obviously aware of what's coming down the line. And I think that's a sign to, local municipalities, whether you've got a population of 10,000, 100,000, 10 million, I think that it's important to look at it and look at it from an overall AI integration standpoint. Some of the other examples we've seen is even, using a tool like a Notebook LM where, we uploaded in the building code for Alberta, and you could ask questions against it. And we had a specific example where you asked a question about wheelchair access to a certain location. What was typically a sift through a bunch of PDFs or go to a website and try and find the information, you asked the question and you got it back in 20 seconds rather than sifting through information. Same thing with occupational health and safety. I mean, big, large documents. So what happens when there's an accident, there's a car accident, somebody falls in a hole, something else? You know, if you have that information readily available, I mean, first and foremost, it's people's safety. But then secondly, you've got a proper policy in place to be able to help people. And these tools they're already there. It's just a lot of municipalities aren't aware of them yet.
Let's talk about some of the challenges that municipalities would have, though, right? Because I think they're definitely under more scrutiny than a private business, right? So there's something that I was thinking about is one thing came up that, what if a strategy document was written, or I can't remember the specific public facing document that was written. It was written, let's say 50-60% by AI, right? I think the challenge of the municipality is two things. One is, was there actual human reviewers? Because your work could get piled up that you could just rely on AI. And we always say you got to have humans in the loop there. But also, there's also the public perception, which private businesses don't really have that level of. It's like, oh, if AI is writing your briefs and all that, why do you need as many people in government? Which kind of relates to, hey, how come you're taxing me so much? Like, how come you have so many workers? You shouldn't have so many workers, right? They're under that kind of that perception lens, which I remember was a big factor when I was, in municipal government and federal government. Rightly or wrongly, they have more scrutiny on that.
But that's kind of old term thinking. Like, to me, whether an AI, an LLM wrote it or a human wrote it, I don't care. As long as it's accurate and it's impactful and it's effective, why should people care? I think that's the thing we're finding with AI, though, is that you definitely need to have a human review. But rather than having somebody start with a blank piece of paper and taking a week to write some kind of a document, a bylaw, a meeting minutes, whatever it might be, let AI do the bulk of the work, have that person review it so that person can get on to 3 or 4 other tasks that they never get around to. And I think that's the big thing. But you talk about those challenges. Obviously, you got the scrutiny from public. We know the privacy, data security is a huge concern that we deal with municipalities. Bias and inequity, that's another one that you have to be careful of. The concern with job loss, you have employees going a bit resistant because they're going, wait a minute, I don't want to jump on this AI, bandwagon if it's going to replace my job. And I think you need to take those things into consideration to be open and honest with your employees, to share with them what you're trying to do. And it's about efficiency. It's not about job replacement.
When you talk about privacy and surveillance, obviously there's always people who have the thought of, oh shoot, it's big brother watching me, right? And then when you have, for example, like the city of Quebec or Pittsburgh, where they use predictive maintenance, right? They, in real time in Pittsburgh, I think in real time, they analyze traffic data to see how they make their lights a little bit more faster. So, in low traffic, you can make it faster. High traffic, I don't know, longer, whatever the optimized traffic lights. Because God, I love, there are certain roads that I'm like, why am I waiting here for 45 to a minute and 15 when there's nobody around, and versus other places where it's so fast you barely get enough time to get more cars through or something like that. I think the big thing too is like, oh, if is government taking pictures of, is there more surveillance on people rather than, but the surveillance isn't about people, it's about the activity that's happening. So I think there's also that, whether it's rightly or wrongly perceived. The question is, hey, can governments use that data to essentially spy on their citizens?
I know there's that concern, and I think that stuff's already happening through social media. Like, people go and share all kinds of crap on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and everything else, and then they're like, oh, well, this AI is going to invade my privacy. You've already shared most of the information. I mean, if you do a Google search or a Perplexity search on yourself, you'd probably be pretty amazed with what's already out there. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's one of those things that people need to be aware of, but I think it comes back down to municipalities, obviously very seriously, and we deal with it, is red and green data, right? Any green data, public information that's going to be posted on a website or readily available, you don't have to be as cautious with that because it's already out there. I mean, I could take it as a citizen and take your bylaw and run it through some kind of an AI solution to scrutinize it. It's the red data where you're dealing with private information, addresses, birth dates, names, incomes, all that stuff. Obviously, you need to be very, very cautious with that and make sure that you have the proper policies in place so that people are not sharing sensitive information, because that's where it does get dangerous and that's where there's massive liability.
For any municipality who is thinking of, who haven't started AI or, just getting going, one thing that you could try, and you can start a small AI pilot, especially for high impact areas like maybe traffic management, or where I think the easiest would be legislative automation or anything, agendas, briefing notes, and so on. So get started there and, measure the success. Hey, could you create a custom GPT to handle all your agendas, your meeting minutes, your briefing documents? Obviously, make sure that there's privacy, equity, transparency involved. You let people know, hey, this is, AI generated, are built into every step. But this is so easy to start like that. And really the question for employees and municipalities would be, what steps can you take to balance that innovation side with the privacy and workforce concerns? And how can you affordably do it without really being left behind? Learn more about implementing AI in your business by watching these videos here. Enjoy today's episode? Want to learn how you can leverage AI in your company? Then please subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.